Good evening to those bored enough to watch. As a young child, I played a lot of games on Roblox, some more than others. I won't discuss this matter too much mainly because I went over this mostly in my previous video, but Roblox is a game that I frequented a lot, and it's a game that has a special place in my heart because of the endless hours of entertainment that it brought me. And while I may not be a fan of today's landscape, I enjoy a lot of the older games on the site, primarily the ones I used to play as a young child. And it's these games that I find myself playing whenever I play Roblox. One of the reasons I'm making these videos about Roblox games is because I want to play these games that I used to play as a child. Now, the games you play as a child and the liking you take to it won't always carry over to when you've grown and want to play it again. I've played this game a lot, and while I can't say I'm a grown adult yet, I can say that it's been quite some time since I've played this game. Around 4 years if I remember correctly. As you can see in the footage and the amount of wins I have in the game, I've played this game quite a bit and liked it a lot, flaws and all. It was a game that I invested a lot of time into. However, while I still do somewhat like this game, I've grown to become very mixed on it. The game I'm referring to is that of Skywars, created by 16-bit Play Games on the 5th of June in 2017. This game was one I played more or less around the time it released to sometime in 2018. The memories I've made of this game are very blurry, and if anything I can barely remember how I even came across this game in the first place. It's one that while I liked it when it first released and throughout the duration of time I played it for, I've grown to become very mixed on it with the procedure of time. This game has an amazing premise, yet such a thing is solely due to the addition of things I'll discuss in due course. It's odd. The things I've taken an issue with regarding this game upon my revisit are ones that I didn't necessarily care about when I first played it, yet this game is also an example of something I dislike with the landscape of Roblox games today, and it's something that I'll get into in due course. To reiterate for those wondering, one thing I've grown to dislike in Roblox's landscape today is the use of microtransactions, and how they're for the most part shoved in your face. I don't necessarily have a problem with it if it's something that you can get in the game through normal means, but is also available for purchase with Roblox for those who don't want to go through the grind. Mostly because while it's a pay-to-win transaction that a lot of games seem to be adopting, it's not as bad mainly because people can get such an item through normal means. It creates an imbalance, but not as much as a game that only allows for you to get an item through paying for it, and said item is the most powerful item in the game. I don't have a problem with needing to pay Robux for things only when it's for something of relative insignificance. Hell, sometimes I'll even indulge in such a thing myself when needed, but this is where the concept of moderation comes in. I don't have a problem with this concept if it's integrated with moderation in mind, so that it's not overused, and the complete inversion of that is something we'll see in this video. Today, we'll be talking about Skywars, a game that I personally feel is a mixed bag, because while it is an enjoyable experience, it's one that is solely due to things like an overuse of microtransactions and the sort. So, with that said, let's discuss Skywars. The gameplay of this game is fairly straightforward. The game sees you on your own separate island, where you're supposed to last until you're the last person standing. You have blocks, a sword, a bow and arrow, as well as a pickaxe. Sound familiar? Anyhow, the game has a currency called coins, which you can earn at the end of each game if you happen to be the last person standing. You can also get coins by mining on your island, though sometimes that can be a risky move. For those wondering, if you're the last person standing, you're rewarded 100 coins. If the timer runs out and there's more than one person standing, each person is rewarded 40 coins. And mining on your island gives you a certain amount of coins depending on the ore that you mine. There is also armor and the sort that can be bought with coins if you happen to need an advantage during battle, though one thing should be made clear. The items you purchase with coins in this game will not carry over to each time you play the game, meaning that each item you buy will only give you an advantage during that one game, and that is all. Meaning that if you quit the game and rejoin, you will lose the item that you bought with your coins and will have to repurchase it if you still have enough to do so. The game also has wins too, that you rack up and get things like armor and the sort. Seeing as how I have more than 200 wins, I'm able to get the diamond armor. There's also other pieces of armor here too that you can get if you have a certain amount of wins. It doesn't cost wins to get armor in the game, meaning that you can go equip the same piece of armor if you die in a round without needing to worry about losing access to such a thing if you quit the game. I'd also like to mention that if you join the 16-bit Play Games group, the group of the creator of the game, then you can gain access to a room in the shop that gives you a discount on the armor, a helmet, of which you can't normally get in the game without needing to spend Robux, and a discount on the healing potion as well. I briefly mentioned it earlier, but there are a lot of things that you can get from the shop, aside from things such as armor and the sword. So let's explore the shop in the game, starting with this section. Blocks in the game have different durability depending on which one you buy. The ones with a higher durability obviously cost more than the ones with lower. There's stone, gold, iron and diamond blocks, and each with their respective durability and cost. Pickaxes in the game also have different speeds depending on the one you get. Of course, the higher the speed of the pickaxe, the higher the cost. The next section of the shop consists of arrows and swords, which can be bought if you want to deal more damage to opponents in the game. There's also power-ups in the game too, all of which allow for you to gain an advantage in battle if need be, though as I mentioned earlier, if you join the 16 to play games group, you can get a discount on the heal potion. For the most part, this is a good way of encouraging replayability in the game, but as we'll see in due course, this brings a few issues of its own. But for the most part, I like the concept of the store, because while the advantages can be difficult to get through, it's still possible to win a fight against those who have them if you know what you're doing. It's also worth noting that there's also the game store, where you can buy weapon and armor packs without needing to spend coins or wins in the game. Back when I used to play this game, I gave into the influx of microtransactions and bought the stone pack, meaning that whenever I play the game, I automatically start off with the stone items in the game. To some extent, I don't mind these permanent one-time purchases with pre-existing items in the game that you can get through normal means. It's just that this game saw that this works and creates a massive imbalance in a way that I'll discuss in due course. There's also the VIP and Mega VIP section, of which you can only access if you bought the respective game passes. I'll mainly get to my issues with these in due course, but for now, let's discuss the actual game itself. This game requires skill, and a lot of it. There are times where you will be against people who have better items than you, and there are times where you need to strategize accordingly to fight them and win. Most of the time, they'll have swords that do more damage than you, or times where they'll have armor and you won't. And for that reason, you need to be able to make heavy use of your items, such as your blocks and bow and arrow. It's also worth mentioning that you can play this game in third person. I personally find that the best way of doing so is through that of first person, mostly due to the fact that it allows for you to do things like place blocks more faster and generally for better accuracy when using the bow and arrow, while also giving you a quick way to do so as well. I feel as though placing blocks in this game can be a bit unreliable at times. There are times where I've tried placing blocks, but there was a delay while I was placing them. That or you just don't have a good way of knowing when you're out of blocks, meaning that if you are in a desperate situation and you know you haven't collected blocks in a while, you just need to hope that you're not out of any. For those who don't know, you can collect blocks in the game through breaking the surrounding environment. For example, the trees and the leaves, as well as the ground. However, ores don't count, as they primarily contribute to your coins as opposed to the amount of blocks you have that game. I feel as though that the game should give people who play in first person a good way of seeing how many blocks you have without awkwardly having to switch to third person to check, or just hope that you have enough to bridge to another island or something of that sort. Despite the game being fairly straightforward, it does give you options in what you can and can't do in it. On one hand, you can stay on your island and harvest the blocks and ores, allowing for you to get a good amount of blocks as well as harvesting some coins. However, this does come with its risks. While you're busy harvesting coins, you could be ambushed by someone who was coming towards you while you weren't looking because you were too busy collecting coins. It's for this reason that if you choose to keep to yourself and mine ores, you may want to stay vigilant and check your surroundings accordingly. While camping can be a suitable strategy, if you choose to be the aggressor in most situations, you may find that some people may choose to camp. This is because it's the best option if they want to get coins while also securing a possible position as a victor, that being just camping and waiting for the timer to run out. Another direction you may want to go in when playing this game is that you may want to be the one who attacks other people, and most of the time this is a suitable strategy given that you know what you're doing. Most of the time there can be a massive skill difference between you and the other player, and sometimes this could work in your favor, and other times it wouldn't. While being a risky move, it's still a good way of earning coins should you ever be in need of such a thing. Maps in this game aren't necessarily as plentiful, and I feel as though while it is something that would be interesting to see, it really isn't that big of a deal whether this game has a huge amount of maps or not. The game mainly revolves around the players and what they choose to do in a game where they can fight, fly, or remain to themselves. And for that concept of choice to be fully exemplified, I don't think that there needs to be a larger quantity of maps for it to do so, though it would be interesting to see how different maps would work. As of right now, the game's maps consist of the thing that's kind of the same as the last one, but the middle of the map is a bit bigger. Nothing really too special or noteworthy, though as I said, I don't necessarily have much of a problem with this. Speaking of the middle of the map, that also exists in the game, and it's something that also gives another strategic choice when playing the game. You see, while your island does allow for you to gain coins and a decent amount of blocks, the middle has the most ores and is generally the most plentiful in resources if you want to get more coins. It's for this reason that many people will opt to go to the middle island, meaning that if people aren't trying to approach you first thing when the game starts, they will mostly go to the middle, and that's where the most fights will break out. I personally choose to go to the middle. It's where the most ores are, and I want to be able to harvest the most coins. Staying in one place in the game is never a good idea, as someone will eventually come after you, whether that be them shooting you with a bow and arrow or someone directly approaching your island, meaning the ideal thing to do when playing the game is always be on the move. Never stay in one place for too long, meaning that you need to be able to balance the concept of mining the ores on your island while also being on the move consistently to the point where other players won't be able to sneak up on you. This is something that I enjoy about the game, introducing the concept of strategy without actually explaining anything, simply presenting what's there to you and leaving you to come up with the strategy and what to do on your own. Whether you play offensive or defensive, or whether you simply choose to remain to yourself the entire time is your choice, and I like this aspect of the game a lot. It adds a level of depth aside from it just being a game about shooting or stabbing people to death. With that, I believe I've mostly said all I wanted to say in this part of the video. I enjoy the gameplay of this game a lot. I think it's a very interesting way of going about the concept of strategy and choice. This game gives you a multitude of different advantages that you can buy with the in-game currency, something that can be seen as a reward for consistently playing the game well. However, with what the game does right, it also sometimes ruins said things by inserting a multitude of different issues, and this is something that I want to discuss in this next part of the video. So, with that said, let's discuss the issues. This game has a good premise, and for the most part I enjoyed this game for what it is. However, the game is mostly sullied by so many things that ruin the experience of the game, and it's these things that I want to discuss, starting with this. To my knowledge, this tends to be more rare than anything, but I do feel as though it's an issue in itself, and it contributes to a larger problem that I have with this game. While I was recording this video, I happened to come across someone who was hacking, and this proved to be troublesome for both me and the other players who happened to be playing in the game, as people I would go to fight would be killed because this guy was just flying across the map just to screw the person I wanted to fight over. Another issue I have with this game is how people will normally team up with one another and target a specific person in the game, or just clear the entire map of those playing and take all of the resources for themselves while also waiting for the timer to go down so that they can get the coins and win simultaneously. And the worst part, there is no way to report these people, and there is no ramification for doing this in the game. People who just randomly team up with one another and do so without consequence, it ruins the experience for literally anyone else playing the game. It sucks that people can do this, harvest all of the coins in the map and get a win, all because they had that advantage of teaming up with one another, and the worst part is that they face no consequence for doing such a thing. A suggestion I would come up with to fix this is to create an entirely new mode for those who want to team up. A duos mode designed for 2v2 battles so that those who want to team up can have an entire mode to do so without gaining an advantage on everyone else in the game. Or in the instance where they do so for that advantage, actually give us a way to report these people or get them removed from the game. For example, using a vote kick system so that those who have to deal with this can get rid of people who try to team up with each other. This next one is the biggest issue I have with this game, and it's that the game tries way too hard to shove microtransactions down your throat, to the point where it gives those who choose to heavily indulge themselves in such a thing to ridiculous advantages over everyone else in the game. I think that for the most part, being able to buy things that can be obtained in the game through normal means was a fine addition, because people who did such a thing could be defeated because the advantage they received in battle was fairly insignificant in the grand scheme of things. However, the game simply takes this too far, to the point where it gives those who buy items a stupidly large advantage in the game, by giving them items and their respective advantages to only those who pay for it. This means that those who chose not to buy these things with Robux, either because they don't want to or because that they don't have the Robux to, can't get these items through normal means, and this harms the game due to the fact that it creates an unfair advantage between those who didn't buy these items and those who did, and it's something that I personally take an issue with. A lot of the recordings I got for this video consisted of me getting killed by people who had significantly better items than me because they bought said items from the store, and there was nothing I could do to fight back because I didn't have a fighting chance. Even trying to break the ground beneath them and make them fall to their death doesn't work because they have a better pickaxe than you, meaning the best thing you can do is run away and hope you don't get shot down. My main issue with this game is how it overuses the microtransaction shtick that a lot of games seem to be adopting nowadays. And don't get me wrong, this always has been an issue with this game, but the thing is that it's only gotten worse, with people now being able to kill you in 3 hits or possibly less with a sword they got from the game store, with you being powerless to do anything about it. This game has overused the concept of microtransactions to the point where you can buy wins with it. Coins I can understand, but wins is simply going too far with this shtick. Something you're supposed to earn by actually playing the game can be bought. With coins I understand, it's a currency that can be difficult to get, due to the fact that it's entirely possible to be killed before you can actually get a substantial amount of such a thing during a playthrough. But wins on the other hand, and the concept of being able to buy such a thing, is simply a concept that I fail to understand. I understand wanting to make Robux or some form of income from your game, but the issue mainly comes from the fact that the items that can be bought are for the most part broken and ruin the balance of the game entirely. When most games do this, it's in a way that doesn't disrupt the other players and their experience, and it doesn't bring an entirely unavoidable imbalance to the playing field. But the packs of items that you can get in game through normal means, I don't mind this because these are items that you can get through normal means, and these are challenges that can be overcome because they're items that can be earned through normal means, and it's entirely possible to beat those who have these items. I mean, I have the stone pack and the stone sword and bow and arrow, and these were the items that I used in this video. Look at how much damage I was doing on a sword fight compared to this individual who had a sword that could only be accessed if you bought it from the game store. Shocking difference, isn't it? This game has an unnecessary influx of microtransactions, so much to the point where it ruins the game and the experience, knowing full well that whatever you do can and probably will be ruined by the items that people can get through buying such a thing with Robux and the massive amounts of damage that they can do to you, meaning that you can't even have a fighting chance to win against people who have such items. I don't like this aspect of the game. It completely ruins the experience, and even more so when you're being targeted by 2 people who are teaming to farm wins, something something you can definitely see is happening in this recording here. And the worst part is that the people who were targeting me here had the exact same items from the game store, meaning that there was no way I could even hope to beat these people in a fight. The game has such a seemingly well put together premise, and it's ruined by the influx of microtransactions, and the fact that people will ruin the experience for others by teaming with one another and overall ruining it for the other participants in the game without facing any consequence whatsoever. The game is so seemingly run by these people who have an advantage over everyone else in the game who don't want to spend their Robux on the in-game store, or that they just don't have the Robux to do so. This game sullies its own experience by allowing for people to just throw their money at it and gain every advantage without actually playing the game. Getting wins and getting better equipment through such a thing, ruined, because of the fact that you can just buy wins with Robux. Coins are a case of which I can understand because the items you get with coins don't last forever, and you won't have permanent access to the items you can get with coins. However, in the case of wins, what you're able to get with such a thing is permanent, and it's a reward for playing the game and mastering it in a way that you can consistently get wins, meaning that being able to buy wins ruins that system of reward completely. Finally getting to put on that diamond armor after reaching 200 wins is a feeling of satisfaction, progression, and reward, and being able to buy your way into that ruins that completely. This game has a massive problem with microtransactions, and compared to the other games that I've covered that opt to use such a gimmick sparingly in a way that doesn't completely ruin the balance of the game, this game shoves them in your face and gives you unfair advantages for heavily indulging in such a thing. With that, let's conclude things then. Overall, I think that for the most part, this is a good and well-constructed game, with a multitude of different things to indulge in both in and outside of the actual game itself. It utilizes a system of wins to allow for one to continue to replay the game and garner enough wins to gain access to more things in the shop. Whether you want to try a new sword or tool in the shop before buying the respective pack for such a thing in the game store, or you just want to temporarily utilize something for an advantage, this game allows for you, through a system of replayability and reward, to feel encouraged to do such a thing. However, this is also ruined by a multitude of different things. This game has a massive problem with unbalanced gameplay, and in more ways than one. Whether that be people teaming and gaining an advantage in numbers over everyone else in the game, or people buying things from the store that you can't normally access through normal means, or people just hacking, it's absurd and unfair. It disallows one to enjoy the game properly knowing that they can't reciprocate in a fight against someone without being put in an unfair disadvantage because someone has more Robux than you. This game has a seemingly well put together premise, system, and design, yet ruins it by inserting so many microtransactions to the point where the game is literally just a pay to win. This game had always been like this, with people being able to buy things that can't be accessed through normal means, but I feel like with the procedure of time, it has gradually gotten worse to the point where the game is simply unenjoyable when going up against such people. I enjoy this game, but each time I play this game and see the original experience be sullied by pointless, unfair, and unnecessary microtransactions, it gets harder for me to enjoy this game each time. This game is a mixed bag of sorts, a seemingly well-constructed premise that's bound to be entertaining to anyone, sullied and ruined by an influx of microtransactions, teaming, and so much more. So, there's the video. I hope you all enjoyed it. This video has definitely been an interesting one to write and record, and I hope you all enjoyed or was interested in what I had to say in this video. If you want to follow me, then my socials will be linked in the description, as well as any afterthoughts or messages I may want to add. With that, I haven't really got much else I want to say, so I'll see you all in my next video. I hope you all enjoyed the video, and I wish you all a very pleasant evening.